In the previous example, we looked at a query that was fairly complicated and used nested subqueries, but we could have done the previous query using a join. Let's look at an example of a similar query that cannot be done just using joins. So I'm going to ask the question, what's the most highly rated movie by the most prolific director? So the most prolific movie director is the person who made the most movies, directed the most movies. And the most highly rated film by that director is obviously going to be the movie with the highest rating. And we can't actually do that just using a single join. So let's take a look. Let's try doing it using a join and we'll see where we run into a problem. So if I want to know the most prolific director, what I'm going to want to do is, let's start with select top 50 star from, and then I want to know movies. So that's going to include title basics. And then I want to specify the type as movie. And I think let's actually look at the first 50 rows just from title basics and see what we have. Yeah, title type is movie. So where title type is movie. So here are movies. And then to get the director, I'm going to go ahead and join with title directors on, and I'm going to be using these table names, so I'll go ahead and alias them. TB for title basics, TD for title directors, and I want tb.tconst equals td.tconst. So that's going to get me the directors of the movies. And actually, I have to put the where after the join. There we go. Okay, so now that's going to get me the directors. And then if I want to know the ratings on these movies, I can get that from title ratings. So let's also join title ratings as tr on. tr.tconst is title basics.tconst. Okay, now for each movie I have the nconst for the director of the movie, and I also have the average rating. And I can get the highest rated film pretty easily just by ordering by average rating in descending order. So let's add that part. Order by title rating, average rating in descending order. So here are the most popular movies, actually the most highly rated movies, but you'll notice that most of these are only considered highly rated because they have relatively few votes. So perhaps we also want to add, and let's say movies that have over 100,000 votes. So num votes greater than 100,000. So those are most highly rated popular movies. And we get Shawshank Redemption, Godfather, Dark Knight, Godfather 2, Good, Bad, and Ugly, 12 Angry Men, and so on. So yeah, this looks like the most popular movies. Now for the full query, let me go ahead and get rid of that part. And we're back to where we were. So here's the issue. So I want to find only the movies where the director is the most prolific director. And let's look at how we would find the most prolific director of movies. I'm going to start with all of this part here up through title directors. So that gets me each movie along with the nconst of the director. And then what I want to find is how many movies each director has directed. And I can do that using a group by. So group by, I want one row for each director. So group by nconst. And then to find the number of movies each director has directed, I can include nconst and count star as number of movies here. And then I can descend, order by, sort by, count star in descending order. And the most popular one will be at the top. I'm sorry, most prolific one will be at the top. Okay, so the most prolific director actually made 5,802 movies. That doesn't seem possible, but let's dig around a little bit more and see what we got. So, I wonder how movies defined here. Let's go ahead and also join the name. So I want to join with name basics as nb on nb.nconst is td.nconst. And then if I also group by primary name, then I can include that in the select clause. And now I have nconst values in both title directors and in name basics, so I have to prefix this even though they match. And same thing with nconst. Okay, so here's the same list but with the director's name. Okay, so Paul Alter actually directed the most movies, and let's actually see what movies he's directed. So I'm going to add and nconst equals nm0022750. So this will be a list of all the movies directed by Paul Alter, the first 50 anyway, in descending order by rating. And none of them are rated. So let's comment that out for a second. And we'll comment that out as well, so I can just see what movies he directed. Oh, actually, yeah. So the reason I'm actually getting TV episodes in my query, so I did mess up. So let me undo that. And the part I'm missing is that I also need a where clause here. Title type is movie. So I left in TV episodes and I don't know what all else. And that's why I got such a long list. Okay, so 245, that's more reasonable. Jiro Yoshino. And let's see what movies Jiro Yoshino did. So we'll do and nconst equals nm1846347. So this is movies done by Jiro Yoshino in descending order by rating. And these don't have any ratings either, looks like. So let's get rid of those. Okay, so we have a lot of titles. Oh, and they're all from like the 20s. Okay, so 1920, 1930, 1917, 16. So, and none of these have ratings apparently. So let's filtered this more. So now I want to know the most prolific director of movies that actually have ratings. So let's go ahead and join title ratings as nr on tb.tconst equals tr.tconst. It should be tr, not nr. Okay, so this is the most prolific movie director of rated movies. Okay, Sam Newfield. So let's see what Sam Newfield directed. NM06278864. NM, lowercase. There we go. Okay, so this was a director that was active in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. It looks like he did westerns. You can look at genre type. And some of these are pretty highly rated. So his most highly rated movie has an 8.7, relatively low number of votes, but that's okay. So Burning Gold in 1936. Interesting, but irrelevant. So here's the relevant part. So what if I wanted to do this part here that was finding the most prolific director inside of this query here that was finding the most highly rated movie for that director? The problem here is this group by. So if I group by person, this is both person, this is the idea of the person, this is the name of the person. If I have one row coming back for each person in order to count the number of movies, that means I don't have a separate row for each movie anymore. And if I don't have a separate row for each movie, then I can't pick out the most highly rated movie. So I can either have one row for each movie, which means that I can't figure out how many movies each director directed, or I have one row for each director, which means I can figure out the most prolific director, but then I don't have one row for each movie anymore, so I can't find the most highly rated movie. So there's no way to write this as one join with and do both things. You can't do the aggregation at the same time as you're looking at the disaggregated values, or values that are aggregated in two different ways. Now, subquery here is really easy because this thing, if I change it just a little bit, this is now just returning an nconst value, and I do top one. So this is returning a single nconst value, which is the nconst for the most prolific director. And this part of the query is just using an nconst. So all I need to do to use a subquery here is copy one into the other. And go ahead and tab it so it looks pretty. And this query should do the same thing as it did before. And it does. So here's an example of something that's fairly easy. And if I just want the most popular movie, I just select top one. So most popular movie by the most prolific director. Now, depending on how restricted what I'm looking for is, I may be able to actually use a windowed function to get this effect. So in this example, I'm just concerned with the one movie that has the highest rating and the largest number of movies by that director. And so I can get the same effect, let me get rid of this subquery here. And I'm going to put back the top 50. So here's what I had before, and they're just ordered by average rating. But if I wanted to calculate for each director, for each nconst, how many movies that director did, I can use a windowed function to find that out. So let's go ahead and add count star over partition by, and I want a separate bucket for each director. So that's going to be nconst. And that's going to be number of movies directed. Okay, so now I have a new column at the end, which includes the number of movies directed by that director. And you'll see, for example, these three were by the same director and they have the same total number of movies directed. So if I order this by number of movies directed in descending order and then order by average rating after that, so that's going to be number of movies directed and then by average rating. We'll do this one in descending order as well. Sure enough, I get the same set of movies as I was getting before. Burning Gold, Man 10 Messes Up, Federal Agent, and so on. So 190 movies and ordered by most popular rating. And then if I kept going down the list, I would find the director with the next most, and so on. Now, here's the problem with this particular query is this will give me the top movie because I could pick one, or the top 50, or however many I want to pick. Or it will give me all of the movies by all of the directors in a particular order up to however many I specify. But there's no way to get all of the movies for just the most popular director. So I know that the most popular director did this 190 movies, has this nconst. But if I try to filter that by putting it in the where clause, so and I want the one where count star over partition is equal to, well, I don't know, the maximum value for this count star over partition. So something like that. So find the most movies directed by one director, select only the rows where the number of movies by that director matches the maximum. Yeah, so window functions can only appear in select or order by, so that's the problem. And that's because this where happens before this thing happens, before you can execute the windowed function. So there's no way to filter the results to just include the movies by the director, the most prolific director.